what happens a lot of times in government is you go to fix a problem and you create 5 others for yourself. Opening the aperture and allowing other contractors and builders to come in theory, sounds like a great thing. But if you don't have a way to track them, if you don't have a way to hold them accountable, all you've done actually is created more of an issue for yourself.
In this episode of the Virginia Consumer Podcast, we talk with someone whose legal and policy experience spans both the courtroom and the boardroom, Jim Moye.
We got some things we've got to fix here. Number one, if you're going to allow someone to come in from another jurisdiction, just being licensed isn't good enough. Put them through some type of reference check with their home state's licensing authority. Then, I'm a big believer that here in any state, in your home state, as best you can, you should reserve as many jobs for folks in that state as you can.
Welcome back to another episode of the Virginia Consumer. Today, we have back our favorite guest, Jim Moye, who you probably recognize from our other intros. He does a great job of just explaining regulation, law, and all of the things consumers need to protect themselves in the marketplace. And I love having him on because I feel like where I get really passionate and crazy and throw a lot at people, Jim has a great talent for teaching everyone what they need to know. So they don't just get a basic rundown, but they have understanding, and it's very accessible. So Jim, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me. Good to see you guys.
Thank you. So tell us, what have you been up to in the last, couple months?
So I have I think like everybody else, weathering the financial situation that is our country right now. At the end of 2025, I was fortunate enough to work on the new governor elect at the time, now governor's transition. So it was good to get back into government a little bit and see what was going on there. Very interesting that the more things change, sometimes the more they kind of stay the same. And also, great news, my daughter graduated college.
That's wonderful.
Yes. So it's happy times over here in the Moye household.
That's great.
What did she study?
A graphic arts design. She's actually smart, unlike her father. She's creative, unlike her daddy. So, yeah.
That's
Congratulations. That's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can think about how many hours I spent with Andrea looking at logos and going through that painful process. And it's definitely something I'd rather pay somebody to do.
And watching creatives do their thing is impressive. Being a lawyer and doing word salad feels very cheap and easy compared to watching someone like actually create something. So.
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Right on.
You can see how proud you are. That's so nice. Yeah, so that's great. It is graduation season. We just got ours through high school. So we're just
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations. Absolutely.
It's a different experience, every kid, One ran through, the other one we're like, please just get through, but we're there. So we'll see. But she's into arts and stuff too, and I love her creativity. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how that goes. So, but it's exciting. We have graduation this Friday. So,
well, good. I mean,
yeah. But we have been talking recently about the Lemon House. So I figure we will jump into it, and you can find this story at Lemon House VA on Instagram. And it's basically just a veteran couple who retired to Virginia from Texas, like you, right? And looking forward to getting involved in the community with the people of Virginia. And instead, they purchased a house from a builder that came from out of state. And just some basic background on this builder. This is part of that reciprocity shift that we had in the state of Virginia, where any builder can come to the state as long as they are licensed in their state and do work here, which is tough because we don't have the infrastructure in place to track builders and outcomes and all of these things. So, it's really hard when you have a system where the inspector general has already said our own DPOR tracking system is a failure. It's not functioning properly. We have wasted millions on new software systems, new trackers, and it's still not holding builders accountable. And they just opened it up nationwide with nothing to improve the system. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, what is the deal with reciprocity?
Yeah. So, of course, every politician will probably explain it a little differently. The way I understand it was obviously there's a housing crunch here in Virginia, just like there is all throughout the nation. Um, there's not enough housing. Housing has become inordinately expensive. And so, in order to get more homes built, to bring in some competition, put people to work, a theory of, hey, let's open this up. Let's get more builders in here. So on the front end, seemingly that would make a lot of sense. But like what happens a lot of times in government is you go to fix a problem and you create five others for yourself. Opening the aperture and allowing other contractors and builders to come in theory, sounds like a great thing. But if you don't have a way to track them, if you don't have a way to hold them accountable, all you've done actually is created more of an issue for yourself. And in this particular instance, you already have failing tracking systems at the state level, and you bring in all of these additional contractors. And the reality is, some are probably great, perfectly fine, but folks don't remember the 100 that are perfectly fine. They're going to remember the 2 that are bad, because the 2 that are bad are going to lead you to stories like the Lemon House, right? Where these poor folks have retired here to Virginia looking to live their best life. And then, they get a bad home. And were so angry with what happened, they felt that they went public with it. And rather than the builder just somewhat taking, I'll just call it just taking the L and understanding that these folks were angry and letting it be, and they posted this sign here, um, really displaying their anger and the fact that they got a bum home. The builder sued them, which is utterly amazing. From a legal perspective, I think I probably understand what's going on there. Allegedly, I would understand what's going on there and why the builder would do that. It's probably to obviously push them to obviously remove the sign, but also as a warning to anyone else who thinks they would want to make it difficult on them. So it's sending a message.
Right. And I took it a little bit even almost like you're coming from a different state. You don't know how we do things here. So you are just hitting them with this type of a lawsuit when we have anti-slap laws in place in Virginia. So again, here you have someone who comes from out of state, doesn't know exactly how our laws work here in Virginia, and now the taxpayers are going to pay for this trial by jury, which blows my mind because now that's an additional tax on all of us after this builder allegedly caused this problem to begin with. And what's crazy is if you go to their Instagram, you can hear the building department confirm that there were code violations and there were issues. This is not something that's really in question because it's confirmed by the county. So to think that you would bring a defamation lawsuit for them putting up and think about this too, that sign would have seen their neighbors. It wouldn't have gone national in the way that it has had he not sued. So that's almost kind of like just reward, in my opinion. The fact that you tried to punish these people and now the whole country knows that this happened. And that was on you for filing the lawsuit, builder, you know?
Yeah, well, and obviously I was not consulted by their legal team,
Sure.
but I think a lot of times, folks in a fit of anger make poor decisions, and um, I, I could argue that it probably was a poor decision for the builder to sue these people. And a lot of times there are probably some strongly worded emails and phone calls and a lot of back and forth that transpired between the builder and these folks. But using the legal system as to potentially uh, intimidate or harass, I don't know that that's the right way to go about it. I don't know that that's the best way to do business with anyone also. So
It kills me too because he's probably got an arbitration clause in that contract, so they can't even sue for the bad work. But the nerve to like bring this defamation to, I just think it's ridiculous.
well, and it goes back to this issue of reciprocity, right? So you're allowing folks in. These are some of the types of issues that you're getting. Like I said, kind of at the beginning, the idea was, by allowing more folks in, you could get more housing built. This is one of those times where you hope, our legislators and executives look at this and say, okay, we need to slow down and let's we got some things we've got to fix here. Number one, if you're going to allow someone to come in from another jurisdiction, just being licensed isn't good enough, right? How long have you been licensed? Put them through some type of a reference check with their home state's licensing authority. Then I'm a big believer that here in any state, in your home state, um, as best you can, you should reserve as many jobs for folks in that state as you can. So if they're gonna come from out of state, they should be sponsored by some other company. Obviously, competitors aren't going to want to sponsor them, but if they're going to have a bunch of subcontractors, and you can see how this all becomes very relevant now because you need someone to tie back to the state, right? So if you're going to have Builder B come in from Delaware, okay, Builder B, you can come in, but you need some kind of companies that are going to work with you to help sponsor you. So it may be a plumber or electrician who says, "Yep, I'm a licensed, I'm a licensed contractor, and I'll sponsor the builder coming in." At least that way, you have someone who's here who's willing to vouch for the person who's coming from the outside. That's a cheap, easy, free way that you don't have to go repair databases yet. You don't have to do big policy or procedural changes in order to make something like that simple actually happen. And it's a better protection model for Virginians that way.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I keep muting you, Mark, because you're making so much noise.
Am I?
Yeah, you are. So I keep muting you. I'm watching him out of the corner of my eye, be like, why is it? He keeps going, it's me. So
Sorry. I did. All right.
sorry, I had to laugh about that. But go ahead, Mark.
It's fine. I just want to riff for the couple questions. So, I get the pragmatic idea that we're going to let people build because it's going to create a more competitive environment, and that's kind of the story. But the experience I've had is that when licensed contractors use unlicensed or under-licensed contractors, the regulatory folks' position is, we really can't do anything about that because we're only regulating certain people. Now, my experience, the regulatory board deleted, 1,300 pages of evidence twice. So I don't know that I have a super amount of confidence in those folks. I look at it and I think to myself, and maybe this is conspiratorial, but it's based 100% on what I've seen over and over again. If you're having contractors that are willing to do something like attack the First Amendment, first of all, uh, in this situation, I don't think that what they did was egregious at all. But if you're willing to do that, you're willing to do a lot of things, perhaps. And so I'm looking at it, this is a way to cross state lines. And so a contractor in Virginia that is willing, and I'm saying it would have to be someone who's willing to do something unethical, who then has a kind of partnership or some exchange of labor with an out-of-state contractor that is operating because of reciprocity. And let's say that out-of-state contractor does something out of bounds. The state's really not going to, what are they going to do about it? And then that other state can essentially use this as a way to swap back and forth between the two entities across state lines. Now, one of the things I want to ask about towards the end is related to crossing state lines with things that I don't think people should be doing. But isn't that open the door? If you're willing to lower the ethical threshold and you're in an environment where if, there's violations, the evidence will go away. There won't be prosecution. The Commonwealth attorneys will not step in to fight that, to take that case. And we've got history of that over and over again. Doesn't having this open door for other states allow other people to maximize their opportunity to kind of grift more at a higher level?
I think if you're not careful, that's exactly what could happen. You could turn it into a feeding frenzy. And if you're based in another jurisdiction and you're 2 steps ahead of the hangman's noose in that jurisdiction, and you have the opportunity to run to another jurisdiction and just start doing poor work all over again, it's been proven time and time again, that's exactly what people will do. Which is why in the rush to try to do something good for the Commonwealth, there has to be a slowdown and think, okay, what's all the things that could go wrong with this? So you're going to let other people just come into the Commonwealth and do their thing? Okay, that's great. But what does that vetting process look like? And again, you don't have to have super complicated vetting. I think, like I said, even starting with, okay, you got to partner with a Virginia business and they got to vouch for you. Number 2, you need to be in, if you're coming from another jurisdiction, there needs to be at least some, you need to have been in business some period of time. Like you can't have just started building homes 2 years ago. How about, 5 years, 10 years? You have to actually have a track record because, again, if you're going to open this up and you're going to let people in, you want people of the highest quality coming in because you've got enough issues now. You don't need to bring in someone else who's going to, create more issues for Virginians. So I think I believe there are relatively simple ways. Reciprocity in and of itself is not a terrible thing. All right. It if done properly, you really can get a lot out of it because competition, generally speaking, brings the best out of everyone. But if you don't, if you're just opening the door and letting any old riffraff in, then it's not going to work out the way you think, and it's just going to create more issues. And I think, like I said, there's simple things you can do. Forcing the partnering with Virginia-based businesses, making them have, having been in business a certain amount of time, being able to provide, having them certify to complaints or the number of complaints they may have gotten in their home state and the resolution to those things. Again, these are not complicated asks. And if someone actually is a big enough business that they can work multi-jurisdictionally like that, These are all simple things. This is not complicated stuff at all.
The issue that I have with DPOR, right? Because you go to DPOR, they're not only supposed to issue licenses, but if you bring charges or a complaint against a regulant who is a builder, a contractor, and they find out that this builder or contractor is unlicensed, they just do nothing. They say that's beyond their jurisdiction. They also don't take that information and pass it on to Commonwealth attorneys. And I think that Commonwealth attorneys have really got a pass in place, because this is not the only category. I've seen it done with nursing homes. There was like an egregious case of nursing home abuse, and the Commonwealth attorney was like, I didn't think I could win the case because everyone was disabled. So she didn't consider them to be good candidates for trial, dropped the case. The guy got away without any charges. Here we see it in DPOR in that they're like, well, we can't do anything about it, and Commonwealth attorneys don't like these cases, so we're not even going to send it over. And I actually got a memo where DPOR detailed to former Attorney General Jason Miyares' office that they were aware that consumers were being taken for millions of dollars, losses in the millions across the state for these very same things, and yet nothing has been addressed at the General Assembly. And I contacted my delegate, who then was Mark Early. I contacted, Sturdivant, and they just brush you off. And they claim to have no ability to influence the law. But yet here we have DPOR that's not really an elected organization, but they are telling these legislators what to put in the law, what to leave out, what should be regulated, what shouldn't, and the assembly's just going with it and just like fine, but terrible results, terrible.
And I will say one of the things that happens when legislation is written is that sometimes the legislation is ahead of the subject matter experts in the agency. So what I'm saying is that someone in the legislature has an idea, I want to do X, and they go and they write the legislation and they, get it through the General Assembly and they get it to the governor's desk. The governor signs it, and then it's sent over to the agency, and the agency's like, I don't know how we implement this. You would think that there's that level of coordination. There's not always. In fact, I would almost argue that coordination, I don't want to say it never happens, but there's not great coordination there. So a lot of times you have legislators who get out ahead of these agencies. And part of it is, from the legislator point of view, they're not in Richmond all the time. This is not their full-time job, right? So when they're there to make hay quickly. And so if they've got something on their mind, they're ready to get it through as fast as possible. The agency folks, this is their full-time job. This is all they do. So they're probably going to take a more nuanced, long view approach of it. So those two things are already in a little bit in violent conflict. Someone who's very much in a hurry and someone who's not in a hurry at all. And so I think there's a lot of disconnect there. So you do get bills passed through that then then it's left to the agency that may or may not have the proper capability to make it happen. Sometimes also they may have the capability, but they don't have the funding in which to make it happen also. So I'm laying that out there, not to say that it's okay that there's that disconnect, but that I think, one of the things folks should be advocating for is a whole government approach, meaning the legislative branch shouldn't just be off doing its own thing and the executive branch off doing its own thing. People need to have confidence that both ends of that are working together, and that if they're producing legislation that ultimately is going to make it to the governor's desk, and, the governor is going to sign, that it's been a properly thought out, considerate view of the issue. Now, does that mean it's easy? No, it means probably there may be a lot of fighting and sniping and everything else that goes along with it. But this is not about easy. This is about right, because it impacts, especially things like consumer safety. This is the very height of what people expect out of their government.
Thanks for listening to Virginia Consumer. Everything shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views expressed are personal opinions based on the individual experiences of our hosts and guests. They do not constitute legal, financial, or medical advice and do not represent the views of any affiliated individuals or organizations. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional about your specific situation.